It almost swallowed me. I didn't find joy in games, movies, or things. Drowning in isolation, trapped in your own mind, it can feel pitch black. As above, so below. Alucarda is a movie that shows the two sides of the Dark Age, a story of medicine side by side with religion, alongside watching two young girls who believe themselves to be sisters of Satan. The movie is based on the 1872 novel by Joseph Le Fanu and has some of the only ASMR that will make you uncomfortable enough to be scared. The camera is usually the eye of the director, trying to convey a meaning or image. The camera shifts from the eyes of the director to the eye of Alucarda, and we get to see in an almost stop-and-go motion her relationship with Justine flourish in what seems to be like the blink of an eye. With the cinema of poetry, there is no you or me, only we, for we are many.
My name is Legion, for we are many.
Vaselina Salo is a great example of how a message can be skewed by ideology, by showing how our tinted lens of ideology can create something that is not there.
Devil's representative comes to the people having a good time there and tells them, listen guys, now we will be for a quarter of an hour observed by heaven. So please pretend that you suffer.
Directed by Juan Lopez Moctezuma, we get a reframing of a vampire movie prototype. Juan Lopez Moctezuma really paved the way for someone like Guillermo del Toro. Even in the DVD from Mundo Macabre, you could see that Guillermo del Toro has a few good things to say about him.
I remember to this day as a child, my favorite program was a program that he used to introduce at night, and it was mostly silent film. And so he was a very important formative figure in my personal life, you know.
Alucarda has all the vampire powers without the blood sucking. The movie begins by following Justine, who is a sort of innocent, quiet orphan. Alucarda shows up in an almost perfect pitch black with her face only visible. The name Alucarda can easily be seen as a reversal of the word Dracula. As well as throughout the movie, we get many close-ups on the eyes to play off that vampirical hypnosis. The movie begins and she automatically starts talking about her secrets. She really doesn't know when to stop, so she quickly calls Justine her sister.
Let's find more secrets.
¿Quieres que seamos hermanas?
Then, as if we are inside of a grim fairy tale, Justine dresses in a Little Red Riding Hood costume, while Alucarda playing the part of the big bad wolf dressed in black. Honestly, the bending of perspective from subjective to objective, or from camera to character, makes it difficult to tell reality from fantasy. The secrets of Alucarda are amulets. Like the symmetry of alchemy, there's always an equal takeaway from something that is given. Libido transfers from sexual energy to physical energy, and sadomasochism is displaced. The whole place is draped in red when Alucarda runs away to her familiar feeling, as the camera always looks upon them, judging by these silent ideologies. The situation reminds me of Santa Teresa de Avila's, or Saint Teresa de Avila's interior castle. And as we walk around it, perhaps we may never know what's inside. Ouroboros, Tiamat, Buddha, Hermes, Quetzalcoatl. The song goes on forever. Charles Deleuze describes two representations of madness in movies. One which shows madness as a nightmare, and the other that shows it as a daydream. Here in this movie we see Justine is stuck in a nightmare state, while Alucarda frolics throughout this haze as though she is in a daydream. Later on they find themselves in the catacombs-like structure. Alucarda claims her love for Justine, which I'm super confused, since they've only known each other for 13 minutes. But maybe how God's time is different. Perhaps 13 days has been like 13 years.
I'm Alucarda. My name is Justine. Would you die for me? I love you so. I have never been in love with anyone, and never shall, unless it's with you.
Iconoclasm is the destruction of precious symbols, and has always seemed like a tool of postmodernism. My thought is that it delineates from our quick-to-worship neural genetic programming, or rather this shortcut mentality that allows us to live with filling-in-the-blank idealism. A good example of iconoclasm comes from this movie, when they decide to show the ridiculous amount of Jesus on a cross that look closer to the carcasses of meat in a freezer in a butcher shop. These carcasses remind me of the potato Jesus in Holy Mountain, and how he literally was the starch that fed the man. Later in Alucarda, Justine faints in the church and Alucarda stays caring for her. Then Alucarda freaks out acting like a witch while Justine is crying crazily. Alucarda grabs the cross while the sounds of moaning are in the background. This movie is a bombardment on your auditory sense. I spoke about the possibility of a sort of neurological connection between audio and horror in the Curlian frequency, but the screams in this movie are closer to a psychological torture. As well, I thought that El Topo was intense with nudity, but in this movie it's a different kind of nudity. Something disturbingly vulnerable. Somewhere in the middle you start to feel bad for Alucarda and Justine. They knew no other reality besides one duality, of good and evil. This is why I think the trances like those Alucarda has come almost as second nature. In one of these trance-like states, Justine screams in true shock and is stunned while Alucarda is kissing her blood. Then the gypsy woman introduces them to the witch-like covenant. We see the mirror reflection of the nuns with the witches, when the nuns simulate orgasm while yelling for Jesus at the same time that the witches are summoning the demons. The transference of sexual energy. One could say that sexual energy is never not used, but just converted into something else that mimics it.
The important thing is, we're awake now.
The interesting part is at the peak of the ritual, the fortune teller gets her neck sliced, and on the other side, the nun is levitating. There's something very Anton LaVey about this movie, or rather Aleister Crowley, amidst the properties of we know better than God.
God, with his lack of knowledge, does not understand this truth.
Lies a deep-rooted obsession with carnal desire, with blood. Grotesque and Gothic blood magic has an esoteric tradition that many have spoken of in the past, in part because people believe themselves to have the magic within themselves. Blood also made its way along with people like Elizabeth Bathory, who believed that if she was bathed in blood herself, she would stay young forever. Vlad Dracul, whom Dracula is named after, used to impale his enemies and drink from a cup with red liquid, and some thought that to be blood, but was most likely just red wine. Even in Catholicism, the blood of Jesus grants eternal life. I think it's important to note that sexual energy is a debatable topic in and of itself. So some believe that we should contain that energy, while others believe we should control that energy. And even some more extravagant others teach to worship it or dismiss it entirely. In an interview posted in the DVD, Juan Lopez Moctezuma speaks about the link between madness and eroticism, and he considers Alucarda not to be the villain, but rather the real monsters being those who try to stop her from living out her vampiricism. So with regards to sexual energy, I assume Moctezuma would believe our stigmatized nature of the compression of sexuality can lead to certain bad habits, can lead to bad results. The movie's further iconoclasm has the nuns dressing in blood. Alucarda points out a central thesis to the film's subconscious layer by stating that the nuns and priests worship death.
You call yourself blessed and believe in the heavenly armies and worship death? I I worship life. You worship death. I love Justine. You love to kill.
Something that can be said about the idea of worshipping the next life. Not to mention the fact that at times Alucarda and Justine look like the ones full of life, while the garb that the nuns wear are constantly bloodied up and appear distraught, similar to mummies. The doctor uses leeches to remove blood, and the priests and nuns self-flagellate for a while. Here there's more emphasis on the idea of blood representing eroticism, and we see the pleasure that one must question that the priest may feel after a certain normalization of deviance, or even the law of diminishing returns, a literal beating out of sexual urges, as the camera looks upon them from above. And in Doyle's green words, it also implies God himself is voyeuristically enjoying the spectacle. The movie then becomes sort of a fun exploitation, with Alucarda becoming the anti-hero. The church members decide to give Justine an exorcism, except the exorcism looks closer to human torture than spiritual torture. The priest then stabs Justine while the nuns are wailing, and the doctor comes in too late, but he does manage to save Alucarda in time.
I'm taking this girl with me before you kill her, as you killed Justine.
The doctor then takes Alucarda and leaves her at his house. Alucarda meets Daniela, who's the doctor's daughter. After a nun is beheaded, yes, you heard right, the doctor then finds out that the priests were saying the truth. There are demons. So he relapses into religion and trades in his medical equipment for spiritual equipment. So to speak, the transfers of energy again. From a medical encyclopedia, stethoscope, and medicine vials, to a Bible, rosary, and holy water. We once again see that the blood is the life source. When the doctor and his nuns go to the grotto to find Justine in the bloodbath, Justine seems to be reborn out of the blood into a vampire, and when the doctor sprays the holy water, she burns. The clash between magic and reason, or rather modernism and myth, leads us to the end.
We will begin that journey some propitious evening, where I will lead you back into the past and relate to you why this land was called Albion, and why Britain. Good night, ladies and gentlemen, and God bless each and every single one of you.
In religion, we are constantly told that your prize is coming tomorrow, oftentimes leading to a sacrifice of today for tomorrow. One must wonder whether this investing mentality was placed so others could focus on the finish line, while some can see the race step by step. In this movie, there are moments that pay off to that finish line, and that is the ending. The emerging collapse when Alucarda is able to make people start catching fire. The auditory portion here may have you lowering the volume, since there is so much screaming in this portion, we do get torturous sounds. While Alucarda begins to burn the grotto down, the nuns bring up the dead nun in a crucified manner, and the movie ends with Alucarda's body disappearing. The last thing we see and hear is the crackling flames burning, with Juan Lopez Moctezuma listed as the director in the end. In the movie Alucarda, we see trade-offs of one for another. The sadomasochism of self-flagellation so as to resemble the orgy of the witches, orgasm to one, levitation to another, and science that turns to religion for answers.
This could only be, as you say, the work of what you call the devil.
Yes.
There's a strong calling here from technique to magic, something that makes us feel not so empty, a certain meaning or moral depicted by some sort of ideation. Auguste Comte, a sociologist, once said societies go from religious to metaphysical to philosophical. And I think statements like this have always made me fascinated by things like shamans, or seeing a correlation to consider them modern day prophets. This is just a question of wonderment, not one to be taken too serious.
1,000.
In some Catholic societies, there's glossolalia, better known as speaking in tongues. I used to research so much into glossolalia, which I thought would be a sort of language that speaks in cosmic consciousness. Even now, I wonder how someone like Siguros has made me reconstruct the way I see reality with morphemes or meaning, being worshipped rather than the phonemes, which are sounds. which made me wonder whether the post-structuralist or postmodern have benefits into using the areas of the brain that are not primarily used in technic, logical, or materialist society. Right brain ideals, so to speak. The spirits or collective consciousness may yell, scream in our face, but how are we to hear it if it is perceived as something else? I have heard so many tell me they don't believe in ghosts, but believe in other things. We idolize and worship meaning, but still wonder things like, what is intuition or charisma? The signifiers must be signified, and so many wish for someone else to signify them. The Bible, the dictionary, the DSM-5, Google are all prescriptions that were once description of things. In Doyle Green's writing, he speaks of Alucarda as the ghost of Tlatelolco. But if that is the case, then I'm to believe in ghosts.
Now the mystic, what he tries to do is he understands what I'm talking about, and that God is not remote, God is not far away, and God is not superior or higher. God is speaking with you every minute of every second of every day.